unanswered questions and get a response to you, whether that bring that back at the next meeting, which is the POAC meeting, or put it up online. The other reason that you're seeing these tables was so that you can get really into, there is an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is designed on procedural justice principles, so opportunity to speak and discuss. Hopefully you feel that this is a respectful process, independent facilitator. So we've really tried to take all of that into account. We've also designed it for Brown Act, so there is an opportunity to weigh in. I was hoping that, as well as public comment, that if there are any clarifying questions that you might have, according to Brown Act, normally the POAC and the city doesn't get to respond, but the chair and vice chair have kindly agreed if the department can respond, they will. Otherwise, we'll capture and we'll keep it at your desks. But this is really about discussing and learning and really probing and exploring. And then at the next meeting, hopefully that gives you a bit more time with the policy and the documents, and as well as the POAC. And at the POAC meeting, another round where the POAC gets to discuss a regular meeting and you all can weigh in. I'm not going to belabor the point too much. Like I said, this is really about getting to that discussion portion. And so I will hand over to DC Knight, who will start us off with presentations that again explain some of the material that's in the room.
I think we need to, we're going to...
I jumped in after...
Robert Schuschel wants to weigh in.
Yeah, okay.
What I have some prepared comments. This meeting gives the public another reason to have no confidence that real reform and accountability is going to occur. To be blunt, communications right now is poor to zero. There's only 8 public members here. There's almost more police here than the public. And you want a public discourse? This is not the right format for that. More information should be provided about the steps, and it should have been in your agenda, because people didn't even realize that you're trying to turn this into a community forum. The notices were too short. People have a hard time in this particular room hearing things. The process is backwards. This meeting should have been used to lay out the steps required, and only when the original draft is rewritten and finalized should POAC take any action. Read your own agenda. It acted as if this is an action item. The public was just given 3 days. The documents are confusing, they're difficult to understand, and there's no way to really tell what the exact wording changes are. So how can people even do what they're going to do? Even tonight's handouts differ somewhat from what was sent out 4 days ago. So what is the public supposed to do? Diagrams are missing from the document. Some of the links don't work. More information needs to be given to complainants, for example, such as the right to bring someone with them to interviews, the feedback they will receive, and getting a videotape of the interview. There's all kinds of things missing. And input from POAC should have occurred only after there's community town halls in each district. This thing of one meeting for the whole city is a waste of everyone's time, and it's not going to work. This effort should include interviewing people who file complaints and what needs to be changed. You don't even know what their experiences are, so how can you change things? POAC needs to have a subcommittee to learn what best practices are in other cities. You didn't even address that at all in these documents. You need to spend one meeting literally going line by line and discussing any changes. This is a complex document, and you can't just wing it with these general comments. And the language in the document should be restructured to be at an 8th grade level so that everyone understands it. That's not meant to be an insult, but most good companies and things do that to make sure that people can read their document rather than like a credit card announcement. And the elephant in the room has never been addressed. The public doesn't believe that internal affairs or PSD is unbiased, but tends to believe they're going to side with their own. All of the interviews need to be taped, and there needs to be an independent source who monitors these interviews. None of that's discussed in any of these documents. And someone like OIR should be brought in to conduct their own investigations to make sure the process is fair and unbiased. And I would even ask, why isn't a copy of the general orders made easily available to the public and advertised? All of these documents are buried. I briefly spoke to the chair and said his agenda for the April 9th meeting is published and he didn't even know it. So what is going on with this whole process? You need to rethink things, and I would object to this. I would rather have 3 minutes to talk about what I want to say than have some group try to summarize the 8 or 9 people are in here and what it is that you want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So we'll pass over to DC Knight to set us up 2 presentations. First presentation is how the policy was developed. This will be standard for some of the policies that come back towards the POAC. So there is a 1-page, and I'm sorry, I only just finalized it, so my bad, but 1-page document, and this is on your tables. It's also at the door, and we'll make sure that this is on the POAC website. The second presentation that DC Knight is going to give you all is a quick overview. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
What's the title of the document you just referenced?
How major VPD policies. Thanks. Okay. The second presentation that DC Knight is going to give is actually about the policy. So it's about the document that we're here to discuss, or that will be discussed over the next few meetings. Okay? If that makes sense. From there, we clearly we were expecting more people, but again, we're here for the community and we're also here to learn, and there are folks online, and this is recorded. So instead of all these tables, we're going to break up 2 tables. I'm going to ask the POAC members to come out because you're also in learning mode. And we're going to get into some of this and ask your questions, get into the document, ask what you need to ask. POAC members as well, right? Ask the questions. DC Knight has kindly invited some of the officers along, so they are also here to share, help answer questions. Anything that can't get answered tonight, like I said, we're going to capture, and we're going to make sure that we get you the answer. Get you the answer. Get you the answer. All right. Still with me? You're here. Okay. Respectfully, not a back and forth still. But if we're ready, we're going to turn it over to DC Knight. Before I do, any questions from the POAC? Good to go?
Is this pursuant to us kind of overseeing the policy changes? Is this part of what we're doing?
This is the kickoff for you to yes. Eventually, we will get to policy changes. Right now, we're still in that learning mode. Yes. But yes, this kicks us off. You're talking about the complaint policy, personnel complaints. You're talking about one policy tonight. Yes. Yes. This is what I appreciate. That's what showed up. You are the public that showed up. Very grateful to you. Yes. But it won't be a working session. The next time this comes up will be at the POAC meeting. Full agenda, they'll be discussing, you can give public comment. VPD is also having one of these on April 30th. You get to do it again. All the while, outside of the meetings, and the DC Knight is going to share this now, the policy is up online. You can go in and comment. So yes, you have multiple opportunities. Ready for the presentations?
That was a lot. Hopefully I can live up to that. So we're working through this PowerPoint that I hope we can have up. After the PowerPoint, I'm hoping that I can give some more information to the public online watching as well as the public here. some information about how we got here, some general overview of what some of the larger big picture changes are from this policy compared to the previous policy. When we do break off, for those that are interested, we have members of the department that work in our professional standards division, as well as some folks from the compliance, integrity, and accountability division that are working directly with our reform. If there's any technical questions or need for clarification, we'll all be here to kind of help answer those questions as you guys discuss.
We really wanted to pilot
Oh,
something.
yeah, put the thing.
The POAC really.
Wait.
But
Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll just, I think there's a misunderstanding. Sorry, I'll try to speak up. Thank you. We are going over policy. So I think that part of the issue here is that we're trying to, and I think Rania was trying to state that here, this is the first time through the POAC that we're taking on public comment. And it's on a policy, and it's the first time the POAC is receiving a policy. We had some discussion about what might be good ways to do that. Your opportunity having a POAC member at your table and speaking with them is an opportunity for you to tell them what you think and for some explanation of the policies to occur. We have VPD personnel here to help explain the policies. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions in those settings. Then everybody's going to come together, and another opportunity for question and comment. So I do think that, to quote the vice chair giving grace, I think we're trying to figure out what works best in terms of giving the public an opportunity. There will be many input opportunities on this policy. We have major policies and minor policies, and you'll hear about minor policies later and the opportunity to comment there and how those processes go. But for these major policies, we really are trying to adopt a process that works. If this process turns out that it doesn't work, then there's nothing that keeps us from adjusting. There's no set process. We're just trying to be inclusive from the standpoint of having each table, if you will. If there were 40 people in this room, then it would be very important that we have an opportunity to break out into sections to talk about it. Yes, there are less people in the room. People may not have understood that we were going over the policy. I think they probably did. You're saying we thought we were going over the policy. We are going to do that. But we're going to do it in a bit of a smaller setting than having the POAC try to explain the policy to you, or having one head sit up here and talk about the policy and trying to talk to everybody. So that's what we're doing tonight.
No. So I'm going to jump ahead of my presentation and go to a later slide, which is seeking POAC recommendations that includes community input to the commissioners is just our very first step. We just issued a press release this morning that there is going to be a town hall presentation on this same policy on April 30th. So that's 30 days from now to give you guys time to digest. In between that period of 30 days, this policy is also on myvallejo.com, where anybody can go in and look at it. They can provide electronic feedback. So there's multiple avenues to capture the community feedback. So I think my presentation, just as a very high level, very quick, might answer some of the questions. So maybe if I can just get through that, and then I think there'll be time to answer more questions after that for what I haven't done. Just in terms of material that was provided as part of this meeting, we thought it was important to provide the new policy, obviously. We provided the old policy, the current, I would say old, but it's existing policy with the attachments that are associated to that include the complaint, the actual complaint form, as well as our city claims process. We also included a couple of education items, which were just some high-level executive summaries, kind of like just a comparison of what was on the policy previously and what is on the policy now. So those were some kind of cheat sheet or Cliff Notes version to try to help people as well. Those should all be in the agenda packet for tonight. And again, we will be before everyone again on the 30th, just as the police department to provide this as a community town hall presentation. So let's see if I can get this okay. Okay. Where do I point this to? There we go. It seems kind of delayed. Okay. What's the framework of this work that we're doing on policies in general? So under the settlement agreement, VPD's policy review process, it ensures a few things. Make sure that we're compliant with state law, obviously. Making sure that we have constitutional policing standards that are fair and equitable, and that we're trying to get input from, tonight, the POAC, as well as community on any major policy changes. Next slide. So how was this specific policy developed? So Cal DOJ and the Vallejo evaluation team, they work with us as the department to establish the requirements of what we need to achieve in a particular major policy. Cal DOJ vet, that's the Vallejo evaluation team, and the city, we work together to establish requirements and use the settlement agreement as a guide for what we need to obtain what's called substantial compliance. Uh-oh. It's going the wrong. Jason, can we put it? Yeah, you want to try it? Can you put it back to the slide that says policy process step by step? Okay, as we said, step by step, what's the policy process? So Cal DOJ and the vet work with us to set guidelines of what we want to achieve through a policy. And then the VPD drafts and revise the policy. So we have multiple stakeholders that are involved when we start drafting, giving drafts back and forth. Cal DOJ, vet, the VPD, city staff, and affected labor groups. So we work through multiple rounds of review. We get feedback, we make revisions, and then we ultimately produce the policy that's comprehensive, practical, and consistent with legal standards and best practices. Now, let me try again. And then we also get we have the POAC review those every single policy. Now, in this case, this is a pretty major policy that we've been working on for months and months. Sometimes they'll be a little bit less major, and they won't be as many changes. And then we get the community to weigh in. First here at the POAC meeting, which you guys can give comments and feedback to the commissioners and to us. And then again, we're going to do it for this policy. We're going to do it again on April 30th to get your feedback as well. There will always be those components of always POAC, community feedback, and always some type of community forum or feedback. We've also layered in that myvallejo.com piece that I talked about for people that want to go on the internet and look and read the policy themselves. And then ultimately, recommendations are reviewed before the policy is finally finalized. We consolidate all of the community feedback, all of the commissioner recommendations, put it all together in a big document, and then decide what we are or are not going to change from that. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is what we just kind of talked about that I went ahead of myself. So tonight we're going to receive the presentation that you're receiving right now. There's going to be an opportunity to ask clarifying questions and to hear from the community about what their thoughts are on the changes that we've made to this improved policy. And again, myvallejo.com is open right now to provide electronic review, electronic written feedback on the internet if you so choose, or in person. We're going to have another meeting on April 30th. This is not a POAC process. This will be a town hall presentation by the department on April 30th to present the policy and, again, capture more community feedback. Next slide. Okay, now let's get into just a very high-level overview of the Policy 1011 Personnel Complaints Policy. Next slide. We've provided the current policy, which we'll call the old policy. No, let me answer your question, sir. So we've provided the old policy that has all of the content from that before, and now we provide the revised policy. So there is no red line.
Okay. Thank you, sir. If you can hold that comment for public comment at the end, and we'll go back to the presentation.
It was in the published agenda. We brought copies tonight. We brought copies tonight of the draft policy for people that are present that would like to see a hard copy. Yes. I can't see it.
So, in fairness to everyone, can we please let DC Knight and hold your comments until the end? We hear you. We want him to finish his presentation, because before you can review a policy, you need to understand the process that we go through. So I'm just out of courtesy and respect to DC Knight, please hold your comments, write your questions down, and when we break out in small groups, then bring those questions up. The more you keep asking questions in the middle of the presentation, the longer it's going to take you to review the policy. Thank you.
So what changed and why? So these are just some very, like I said, very high-level overview topics that are of points of interest for you to review as you review the current policy versus the new policy. Accountability and transparency are very explicitly stated expectations in the policy, and we want to be clear that this is a talking point. This is not just an implied thing. This is very explicit in its expectation. Investigations must be fair, consistent, and evidence-based. In the policy, it's very explicitly stated. Also in this revised policy, serious misconduct is now clearly defined as excessive force, bias, dishonesty, and failure to intervene when force is used. A couple other things I want to talk about before we go to the next slide. Some features of the new policy, too, are the old policy focused on internal processes for handling complaints, where the new policy emphasizes accountability, transparency, public trust. There's a clear expectation that investigations must be fair, consistent, and evidence-based, as I stated. Complaints can be filed by anyone, including anonymously and on behalf of others. So again, I want to just emphasize that these are just high-level talking points that we want to just touch on today. So let's go to the next slide. Anyone can file a complaint anonymously or even on behalf of someone else. There's multiple ways to file a complaint now. That's online through our public portal, which goes directly into our software system where the complaint is tracked. It can be done over the phone, via email to either the police department, to a POAC member, or it can be done in person. Those physical complaint forms are attached to the material. It has an FAQs page with the things that may help the public to answer questions that were commonly asked, and also has a message from the chief of police. Those handwritten complaint forms can be handed to someone at the police department. If you're not comfortable, they can be handed to a POAC member, and they will get into our tracking system. So there's multiple ways in which you can file a complaint. It is also, the complaint forms are available in other languages to include English, Spanish, and Tagalog at this time. We're also interested in community feedback. If there is other languages that we think are predominant in Vallejo that we would also could translate into other languages. So looking for some feedback there. Statements can be updated or corrected after filing. Once you file a complaint and you write your statement, that's not it. An investigator will likely contact the complainant where you can provide clarifying information, and you can always update or correct your complaint. Also in this policy, it's explicitly stated officers cannot refuse, discourage, or retaliate against anyone that files a complaint. That's explicitly in the policy. Next slide. Also, in the new policy, all complaints are logged, tracked, and overseen by the Professional Standards Division in our IA Pro software. Our software tracking system is the hub of accountability. That is, once it gets into that software system, it is tracked, a unique number is given, and all the updates can be provided to the complainant as it relates to the status of their complaint. Under the new public portal, if the complainant provides an email address or phone number, they get an immediate text or email with a link to where they can look at their complaint at every step, minute by minute updates on their complaint. So that's a new feature of our public portal system. Also, what are the findings based upon? Findings are based upon an administrative investigation on the preponderance of evidence. That means if it's more likely than not that a policy was violated. That is the standard. We evaluate all evidence equally. There's no automatic preference that an officer's account is the correct one over a complainant or another witness. Investigations continue even if the complainant withdraws. We had a complaint recently where the complaint was filed and the complainant called back and says, "I'd like to withdraw my complaint." That's fine, thank you. We will note that in the investigative file, but we still complete the complaint investigation despite the fact that the complainant withdrew it, because we still want to find out if an officer or an employee violated policy. As I mentioned before, regular updates to the complainants are provided through this new policy. That was a very important piece of this, community complainant communication. As I mentioned, if you provide an email or a phone number, you'll get that link if you're more technology savvy. If not, and if you file it and you don't provide that information, but we still have a way of contacting you, an investigator has to update you on the status of your case every 30 days. So that's a component that is explicitly in the policy now. Next slide. And just to be clear, now, serious misconduct under SB2 must be reported to the State Oversight Board post. So there's certain criteria that if there's the nature of certain allegations, now again, it's not based on the finding, whatever the investigation finds, it's on the nature of the allegations, have to be reported to California Post. So that the Post stands for Police Officers Standard and Training. They have a body at Post that can review to determine if an officer's certification should be removed. So that is a separate reporting process that we already have in place, and that is also in our policy. There's consequences in this policy for violations that could be up to and including termination. So it's very explicitly stated that discipline can result from violations of anything in this policy or anything in our policy manual. All complaints are logged, tracked, they're time-stamped, they capture demographics, they capture the findings, and it's all logged in our IA Pro software system. Through the POAC, this is a new process, you have the police commission that will be getting a glimpse into a lot of these things that we previously did not. So that is part of this policy, and as it relates to capturing this additional data through the software system, that you guys are going to get to see many of those things in the investigative reports, in the complaints, etc. Per the policy, we also have to have an annual audit by our Professional Standards Division that will track and do an analysis on complaint patterns and different outcomes. Several years ago, through our reform efforts, we put all of our disciplines on our website now. So every time an employee is disciplined, their level of discipline and the type of allegation that was investigation that was made against them is on our website. So that's the thing a lot of people don't realize is all of those transparent mechanisms are in place on our website. And of course, like any policy, there's ongoing monitoring to ensure policy works as it's supposed to, and making sure that there's no updates that are needed, etc. Let me make sure I got everything that I wanted to cover. Bottom line, the old policy focused on handling complaints internally and how we did that. The new policy is designed to ensure fairness, transparency to the public, and accountability. Overall, the goal is to rebuild and maintain public trust through a more rigorous and open process. So at the end of the day, our previous personnel complaints process was good. It was fine. This is even better policy now due to a lot of the revisions and improvements that we've made to it. That's it. Thank you.
Chair and Vice Chair, if you're ready to join your community.
Yes. So, Dr. Shah, so what we received your comments. We thank you. So this is an let me finish. So I'm going to answer. Let me finish. So we're going to take the comments as DC Knight said, and we're going to compile them and we're going to answer them. And then there's 2 more opportunities for the public to weigh in. So again, I ask that you give us grace, work with us, and we'll be fine. So I know this process is very difficult, but we'll be okay. And I encourage you to work with us. So we're coming to you right now.
Recording in progress.
All right, folks.
I think we're done, guys.
Hello? No, not on. Okay, hello. We're going to start winding down. Thank you. Hi. We're going to start winding down. I don't want you hidden anymore. Can I move you one more time? Is that really obnoxious? I'm going to have you just so that you can see. Okay, thank you. And I'm so sorry. Tell me your name. Mark. Mark. Lovely to meet you, Mark. I'm Rania. Rania. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll take the POAC back to the dais if that's okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully that felt productive. Hopefully that felt like you are starting, that we're understanding. Okay. But let's hear, because we weren't able to be together and there were many, many conversations. There's a mic on tables. I'm wondering if folks can share what you heard, what came up, POAC members, for the record. What did you hear? What are you thinking? Trends? What are people concerned with? What did you hear from the table? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to probably give you a biased, this is more my viewpoint, but I think that there's a couple things, some we discussed, some we didn't, but one of them is a lack of district meetings. I realize you've only got 45 days, but this is over and over again, the community is being given short shrift. This group really doesn't, of 8 of us, we don't really represent the community of Vallejo. We're some little tiny slice. There's all kinds of different groups out there that are experiencing all kinds of things. One of the things I think we talked about a lot, you need some much better FAQs at the beginning of your documents. I mean, the reality is most people are not going to read the document, and even if they tried, they're not written in a way that's friendly for someone who's not in the police profession. So you need to probably start to go out in the community, show them things and say, what are your issues? How do we answer your questions? Not how do I tell you what I think you believe. And that's been the fault of the city on too many issues. I think in these investigations, you need videos ought to almost be mandatory. Maybe there's some exceptions, but we're in the 21st century. And there ought to be an independent observer and people told that, so that when I go and complain, I feel like I got someone on my side. Because I can tell you the public doesn't think that internal affairs is on the public side. They think they're going to give their buddies a break. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter, but that's their perception. And there's this whole issue of confidentiality is almost totally missing from the document. You need to tell people what's going to happen. Where's the information going to go? There's diagrams. There's all kinds of things you have to start putting in there. You know these things. They don't. And I think what you have to assume, make believe it's your mother who filed the complaint. What would she have to know? Or what would you tell her so she'd even be willing to go down to the police? And I think for the complainants, you need to give them much more information. What is the process? Do you have an ombudsman for me? Because we were talking about that as an issue. You know, I say, well, there's an officer with a beard that was mean to me. That's my complaint. Well, that's probably not enough information, you know. But if there was an ombudsman helping people, not only would the police get better complaints, but it might stop some of the ones that are kind of unwarranted. And I think it's those, you need to start to think about your customer. Your customer is the public. And I think up till now, the customer has been given short shrift. That's my personal feeling. And that most people in Vallejo have just given up. 20, 30 years, nothing has changed. And you tell me, give me a break. We're going to make a difference. I've heard that over 20 years. Show me, even if it's low-lying fruit, what are you going to do in the next 3 months that gives me some hope that there's change in the making? Don't come up with these big, enormous projects. Do some little things that right away some people in the communities will feel maybe there's a new day coming. And that's my comments. I don't know what else.
Does anyone else on the table have any comments or thoughts about the policy? Go ahead.
Through the chair, we do have someone on Zoom that would like to make a
We're not on
comment.
public comment yet.
Okay.
What some of the things that we talked about here, some of the things that we talked about at our table is in these document right here in this policy, the actual POAC committee itself isn't really mentioned in there, only at the end. And they are like the bridge. They should be in there just as much, just like the community. They are actually representing us more than the police officers. So they should be in there quite a bit for us to have a fair skin in the game, because they are representative of us. And something that we didn't talk about here that came up to me is, you know how you have Meet the City on the farmer's market or Meet this or whatever? What about these people here? How can these people come out to the community without and interact with the community without having to come to these meetings? Because during those interactions, they can also get more information from the public and also be handed a complaint slip like this policy says that they can do.
Mark, you're the only one representing your table. Is there? Oh no, sorry, I'm so sorry. No, your table's still there. Anything from this other than the second table? Key things that came up, questions. Okay.
I don't really have anything. This was just an opportunity for me to look at the policy and start thinking about it. I'm just starting thinking about it.
Thank you. POAC members. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. If you want to tell us what discussions from the
Initiate
table.
that. I would like to hear from the POAC committee. I would also like to hear from the city manager and city attorney what you all have heard today that stand out, that you will bring forward, moving forward.
Thanks. Yeah, what'd you hear?
I'm a fairly new resident in Vallejo. But I heard a lot of historical feelings. And hopefully we can move forward to change some of that, because it was very sad to me. So.
Who else on the POAC? What did you hear?
I heard willingness from people to listen. Just like we listen to you, listen to us. I know this process is frustrating. I know there's a lot of history, a lot of it is negative, but I'm asking you to give it a chance. One of the things that I like to change in 3 months is Vallejo's never going to change. It'll change if we work together. That's what I want to hear in the next 3 months. Just like you're putting a timeline on us, I'm putting a timeline on you. Work with us. Vallejo can change. History is something we do not want to repeat. History is something we want to just remember, but we want to focus on the present. So let's work together and willingness. I'm one of those people that I believe in being positive, and I want to commend Mark because he sat there and asked some good questions. That's what I want to hear. Hey, this doesn't make sense. What are your thoughts on that? He even asked an officer to come over and explain to me what this is. That's what I'm looking for. That's what this commission is looking for. So hopefully in the next 3 months, we'll see a different dynamic in this room where we can start sharing ideas, asking questions, and learning from one another. That's what I like to see. But the willingness to participate, to engage, that's what I want to see. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share from our table over here. A few of us got to speak to Layla and Dr. Schussel and Clarence and Jose, and we heard a lot about how some of the summarization of information could really help to engage the community if we could get FAQs both about the draft policy that we're talking about tonight and over the next 45 days, but also about the POAC ordinance out there, and to be, as we've talked about over and over during our training and during the first initial meetings that we've had, transparent and clear in our communications with the public, and obviously trying to engage more of them. That would be great. We definitely heard a little bit about the timing of the mechanism in which we let everyone know about the meeting tonight and about the, sort of the timeline that we're on for approval of this draft policy. And I know that moving forward, we've taken steps to publish the policies that we're going to be reviewing in future meetings. Some of those are already published on our website and will be available with a more regular timeline than the way that this one came out. So we're looking to move forward with that type of timeline so that everyone can have more time to review the policy, so that we can continue to engage everybody, and so that all of us have more time to review the policies and give our input as well. I also took specific notes when we did get into the language of the policy itself that we're going to be compiling together, as we said earlier, and bringing forward in our future discussions. So thank you all for taking the time. It's an evening of your time, your free time, the public, and hopefully we felt it was productive as we did. So thank you.
Okay, so my sum up from what I've heard, a lot about process. I'm not going to repeat, but I've grouped them. Context, we're still hearing context. There's still trust that needs to be built and fostered. Ways for you all to get out and get information out to your community. Ways for community to get involved. I heard a couple of things around policy. Can an officer file a complaint if someone doesn't? I heard, can someone file a complaint separate to an officer if I'm not the complainant? I heard that. We had a discussion on the second table about the very process, and the city attorney was kind enough to kind of break that down. You get a number, all those things, so that's very helpful. So we should sum that up as well. And you've also got your notes. That's my summary for this evening, and just for this evening. But yeah, we'll do up those notes and put them online, and those will be your fodder and some of the foundation, so you're not starting from scratch when you meet again. I pass it back to the chair and the vice chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. I didn't hear from the city manager or the city attorney. I'd like to. Thank you.
You want me to go first, or you want to go first? Or would you like us to respond, or? Okay. So I'll tell you something that I heard that doesn't require any specific direction, and that was some comments around the question of, is some of our information require too much reading, not in plain English, doesn't answer questions that people would regularly have. And so one of the things that I can say that we can definitely commit to is doing some kind of an FAQ page or a summary page for two reasons. One, so that people can understand it, and two, so that over time we can add to it and change it. As the same questions get asked over time, we know that people need that information to be out there in a different format, that they're not necessarily reading the full ordinance or have the time or really the understanding, or maybe the full policy, as I think Dr. Schussel said. perhaps they don't have the time or maybe the expertise to understand those things. So I think definitely we can commit to working on those summaries and FAQs so that we can put them out to help the public understand things that are maybe already there, but are, buried in some dense information. So to answer your question, I think that is something that we can definitely do, basically kind of on our own, and the commission can see what those summaries look like before they get published, but definitely we can do that.
Thanks. And I'll just add, in addition to clear communication, educational materials, a lot of emphasis on us going to the community that was mentioned at many tables on many different occasions, going to them in different formats and different locations to get them to provide us with information, and also to kind of provide more context. So a really common comment at the tables was, this policy doesn't read in a way that's understandable to a lay member of the public. And, related to that, we need to explain to people the context. What is this policy? Who's it for? What is it surrounded by? Like these FAQs and other things, so that people understand the whole ecosystem of, how we're engaging with the public, how complaints are filed, what happens to a complaint, and all of that. So, much more richly describing the whole context of the process.
I have two questions that just have to do with terminology that was used in the report. I'm not familiar with the term Vallejo evaluation team. Is that defined in here somewhere? Or so can somebody tell me what that means?
It's listed on the How Major VPD policies. At the footnote, the evaluation team basically describes this independent consulting group.
Thank you.
That's where it exists.
And the second question, Deputy Chief, in your comments, one of the slides mentioned labor groups. I assume that includes the Police Officers Association. Does it include other labor groups?
Yes, it can. So specific to this policy, personnel complaints, which could affect any employee, whether it be a sworn officer or civilian staff. So there's other labor groups that are involved as well.
Okay, but you're referring mainly to labor groups that represent employees of the police department?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question concerning that same thing. Is the school site safety officers part of those labor groups?
School site safety officers at the school, at
At
the
the
Vallejo
school.
schools?
At all the schools?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to follow up to Mark's first question. Who are those people in that group? And you said it's an independent group of consultants. For whom and what do they do? You're making assumptions that we know that, and that's a missing piece of information.
You're talking, Mr. Schuschel, you're talking about the Vallejo evaluation team?
Yes.
So that is comprised, the Vallejo evaluation team is the team of folks, some of you may have met them, they've come for site visits that oversee our reform efforts with Cal DOJ. They work for the firm Jensen Hughes, and they have a website. I think it's VallejoMonitors.com is a website. That's an independent website that describes their efforts here in Vallejo.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of where, going back to where you know things the public doesn't know. And I think it's a trap. It's hard because you just assume I know these things. But I just ask you for almost everything you do with this document. You got to go to people who are naive like me compared to you to make sure they understand what you put in your documents.
I think it'll also be important to explain or describe the contrast difference between the POAC committee and this independent contracting group. That needs to be clarified, because now I want to know how this independent contracting group works into this policy.
They're with Cal DOJ.
I understand. This committee is also under the DOJ. Is that correct?
No.
No.
That's not correct. But
Well-
you guys are working under those
The
policies?
reform efforts are Cal DOJ.
Okay.
Okay, so
So-
Cal DOJ came in with a list, guidelines for what they expect their department to do. The independence part, they bring with them a consulting firm. For Vallejo, it is Jansen Hughes, and they work together. They work together on a couple of
Okay.
different things. Not all.
These
not
are
related to the
representatives
POAC.
of the DOJ. That's what
Sorry?
you're saying. This independent contractor is a representative of the DOJ?
I don't want to. Yeah.
So let me try. So there's a little bit of history that goes back here. The city originally entered into something called a collaborative reform agreement, where we voluntarily, the city of Vallejo, voluntarily entered into this collaborative reform agreement with the California Department of Justice. That voluntary agreement included this evaluation team of Jensen Hughes to work with us on certain reforms. There were 45 of them that were suggested by an evaluator who evaluated the department and then said, we think these 45 things should happen. So that was the start of this. We had
I
3
see.
years to complete that work, and the work was not completed within 3 years. We moved into the next step, and that next step involved a whole bunch of steps, but ultimately involved a settlement agreement, which we are under now with the California Department of Justice, that also said we will have an evaluator, someone who will evaluate our changes, like this policy, and help to make sure that they believe it follows it follows the law, it follows best practices, and that everything that is within that settlement agreement, which is available online and you can read, is something that we perform with their assistance and oversight, and they review each piece of it. So when VET is referred to, evaluation team, that is the firm hired by the California Department of Justice that Vallejo pays for through a deposit account, essentially, that helps with each of the reform efforts, oversees this entire list, and has to make a finding at the end of the process that we have reached substantial compliance with everything that's supposed to be in every single one of those items
I see.
that is in that settlement agreement. That's what we're referring to. That's separate from what we're doing. Stacking up this POAC was recommendation number 45. That was one of those items that was in that settlement agreement that we said we were going to do,
Got it.
and they've overseen that process. They oversaw and looked at the ordinance when we went through the process of adopting it, and they've kind of been with us along the way
I see.
as our pauses happened, as our challenges happened, and then as we reached resolution of all of those through this process.
Thank you for that clarification. And you see how you were able to explain that to me in 2.5 seconds, 2 minutes? Thank you. That needs to be written. Do we understand? Because those confusions can happen for folks like me.
So what you may want to do is that usually Jensen Hughes, their reps come out every 6 months. They were recently here in January, and they do come and they do talk to. They have spoken to some of the POAC members just to get a take and feel of what. We can ask them to do that. We can, but somebody mentioned there was a room packed the last time. There's because they were here. They were here. So I'm not sure how you missed that, Dr. Schussel, but they always make it a point, especially if you've attended previous meetings, to send emails out saying, we're coming, we're having a meeting, and then about 2 months later, they'll post on their website the results and the outcome of the meeting, because they are obtaining feedback from Vallejo residents. And they've been doing it for the last 5 years that they've been here. So just keep an eye out for that. But they do come regularly to Vallejo to get an assessment of what's occurring here.
And if,
Thank
if
you for
any
that.
member of the public would like to get added to their mailing list to
Please.
be informed, catch me after tonight's meeting and I'll
Okay.
share that info with them.
Thank you.
So, do we have any more public comment or any on Zoom or?
Through the chair, we do have two members that have raised their hand in the public.
Yes.
I'll try not to be redundant with what I've said earlier, but I hope what one of the messages that came through tonight is that I think POAC leadership needs to be more sensitive to the public and where the public is coming from. And I think you misjudged this meeting. And I'll just stop right there. There's a few things I'd just like to reiterate. One is, I think each of the POAC members needs to start going out into the community and talking to people in your neighborhoods. I can trust the last dime I have that they're going to tell you things very different than what you're hearing in this room, because they have a very different perspective on the police and the way they've been treated and things like that. I've submitted 3 pages of questions. What's going to happen to them? Am I going to be a File 13 candidate? And a couple things I'd like to just reiterate. Confidentiality in this is so critical, and it's barely even mentioned. You need to be much more sensitive to that and come up with ways of convincing the public that you're trying to protect them. Forget the police. The police have all kinds of bills of rights. Probably California's got better ones than any other state. But the public feels very naked and needs some reassurance that they're not going to be retaliated against. And something that has never been talked about, I think you need to have a volunteer ombudsman that someone can call if they have a complaint to help them file the complaint. I really think, as I was saying to the deputy chief, it would make his complaint process a lot better, because they would have more of the information he needs, etc. And finally, the document that you were looking at tonight, the 1011, except for almost a footnote, there's nothing about POAC. And I think you need to have a diagram and a whole section describing what POAC is and how does POAC fit in with this whole complaint process and review and investigation. Right now, I don't think one person out of 1,000 in Vallejo could answer that question. Thank you.
Jose, did you want to?
Jose Carrizales. I always hear that us as citizens have to be patient. We must follow the process. We must agree to what's being done. I think people must realize that we as citizens have had years and years of abusive behavior. Should the expectation of the onus be on us to be patient? At what time are we supposed to forgive an abusive agency? When there is no more time? When the time runs out? When? So that's the weight on the shoulders of the committee members. To understand the pulse, the heart of the citizens who have suffered, the impacted families who have suffered years and years and years of abusive behavior by this agency. The time is now to make a difference. The time is now, and the weight is on you. Today at about 3:45 p.m. I received an email, Vallejo PD's revised personnel complaint policy. That's just an example of information just given to the members of the public 2 hours before the meeting even starts. How is that sufficient amount of time for us to even digest, to develop questions, to create questions? Is that the process that we have to adjust to? Is that the patience that we have to accept 3 hours before a meeting, an email that describes the new policy? Those are just a part of my complaints or my disagreements, whatever negative word anybody wants to use about this quote-unquote process. It has to be better. It has to get better. We as impacted families, we as citizens of Vallejo, we have earned the right to have this process done correctly and in our favor, not in their favor. The time of the fox guarding the hen house has to stop. And it stops with you guys on this committee.
Hey, everybody. Oh, bring up real quick, because we didn't bring it up in our quick conversation. The rights of the residents or the complainant should also be included in the overall draft of the policy. So let's just make sure that we don't overlook that, okay? Thank you.
Is there any other? Yeah, is there any online comments?
There are two members that would like to speak online on Zoom.
Jason, sorry, you have to call them because we can't see them.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for accepting my request. First of all, I'd like to commend the citizens and various people involved in this effort. I'm very proud of the fact that people gave up their time to come and try and make sense out of what's being presented. With that said, it's going to be quite a bit of work to wade through all the memos and the updates and all that. So don't lose heart, stay focused, keep working on it. I was not able to attend the meeting in person this evening, and I'm not sure if it was a technical glitch or a choice by the presenter to not have the discussions audible for people that were watching. I tried 5 different ways to listen to when you broke into small groups, but it just was not available. I will definitely see you at the next meeting. So thank you very much for holding these, and I look forward to positive outcomes. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Sana Sethi, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Sana, and I'm an organizer with the ACLU of Northern California. Thank you for your work so far on POAC. I wanted to start by echoing the previous speaker's comments. I appreciate the opportunity for folks in person to be able to talk directly with their members of POAC, but there was no option for us who are calling on Zoom to do so. nor was there any audio for us to listen into the discussion. So we kind of just had to sit and wait. And so I ask that you please consider community members joining on Zoom for next time. Today, ACLU NorCal submitted a letter via email to the entire commission outlining our feedback on the police personnel complaints policy. The three main points that you will find in our letter are that 1, sections need to be added to the policy implementing the POAC ordinance that include details about VPD's obligations to and relationship with the POAC regarding personnel complaints, as well as the required procedures, reports, and timelines that are in the POAC ordinance. The definition section should be revised to simplify complaint definitions that will lead to how they are handled. And lastly, the misconduct category definitions should also be revised for clarity. And there are more details about all three of these recommendations in our letter. We believe the policy is not in final form, and we welcome discussion with POAC about our recommended edits. And lastly, Commissioner Roy addressed this in his comments, but we do hope for that for future meetings where policies are being discussed and reviewed, that community members can have the 3 weeks of advance notice to review policies online that you talked about at the last meeting. Several of our volunteers reached out to us and let us know they didn't feel like they could adequately look through the documents and prepare feedback on such short notice, and we share that sentiment. It seems like there are multiple opportunities to provide feedback on this policy, but POAC meetings remain an important way for folks to weigh in where they can directly speak to the commission. And we also hope for the next regular meeting, the full packet is posted online for the 4 policies that will be reviewed, such as was done for this policy, where it included, as Deputy Chief Knight talked about, the old policy, current draft policy, and the comparison summary doc with key changes. I think that really helps it be more accessible for community members to weigh in. Thank you for your work and for your time, and we look forward to continuing to participate in these meetings.
So is there any other comment? Seeing none. What I noticed in our discussion is most of the specific things that were brought up were the deputy chief explained that they were in the ordinance and clarified. A lot of things got clarified. And mostly what I was hearing is there a real need for FAQs, and really putting POAC front and center in the complaint process. I think that's essential. One of the things that's clear is we can't go forward with these kinds of meetings. We need to have small group meetings in the communities. Each of us, POAC members, I represent South Vallejo, and I know that there's a community organization that I need to reach out to, and these are the people that we need to be talking to in the community, and then bring that feedback back to the group. So, there's going to be a lot of these policies that need to be addressed, and we need to find a better way to do it. And I think small groups in the communities is the way we need to go. So thank you everyone for participating.
I think before we adjourn, a suggestion. I think the public probably needs to hear some clarity about what all the next steps are and when those meetings will be, because I think there was a little confusion about an email from today that I don't know. Have you announced the town hall meeting dates, et cetera, and so that people understand that?
Yeah, I'll reiterate again from the presentation is, so separate and above from the police commission's input and feedback, we are holding a town hall presentation from the Vallejo Police Department on the same policy on April 30th here in this room, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. This room on April 30th. In between now and then, myvallejo.com contains the policy, the old policy, the new draft policy, and you can sign in to MyVallejo and write as much as you would like to provide us feedback that will be tracked electronically.
I think the other thing is that the commission has its official feedback to give as a body, which is a little bit different than holding an open forum for the community. So that is also going to be at a future meeting. We don't have that. Do we have that date yet?
Yeah, it's April 9th.
Okay, so that will.
April
Nope,
9th.
that's only a fly-in, not a bee.
April 9th is at 6:30 is our next official meeting, and we will be discussing this. It will be on the agenda.
And the commission as a body will at that time be giving their feedback, but it will be an agenda item, so the public can also speak to that agenda item at that time as well. So, like other agendas, you can.
That's not the agenda. That's a list of some of the policies that will be addressed per the 3-week advanced lead time we're trying to create. The agenda and official packet will be posted through the normal channels a week in advance. But I understand the content.
Is there any more business? So if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.